Yeah, imagine waking up to find out that your company just made $1 million commitment, leaked its secret sauce to a competitor, or even hired 3 people who don't actually exist, all before you finished your first glass of water. This isn't a sci-fi script. This is what happens when we treat artificial intelligence like a cool office gadget instead of a fundamental shift in how we handle trusts. Everyone is racing to implement AI, but almost no one is asking who is actually holding the remote. Welcome to Security Unpacked. I'm Adeola, and today we're stripping away the buzzword to talk about the G word. When I say the G word, I mean governance. It's not the boring paperwork you think it is. It's the only thing keeping your innovation from turning into an insurance nightmare. And joining me today is Chijioke Okoye. He's an expert who lives at the intersection of risk and strategy, helping organizations move past the AI hype into actual sustainable safety. Chijioke, it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the lounge today.
Oh, thank you very much, Adeola. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, before we get into the brains of a machine, let's talk about the human behind the screen. Now, we're doing this across borders today. So I have to know what is the non-negotiable fuel on your desk right now. So are we talking about a serious dark roast coffee, or are you on that calming, I've got this under control Abati vibe? So which one are you doing right now?
I'd say for me it's a little bit of both, right? So
Okay.
there is the coffee on one side, and then there's the herbal tea on the other side, right?
Wow.
So basically, what I tend to do is because of timelines and what's it called, constraints, I have to keep going, right? But at some point, I'd have to actually slow down, take a step backwards, evaluate what we've done, and then see how we can go back at it. So it's a little bit of both, where you go, then you pause, take a step backward, and then
Wow.
go at it again. So yeah, I'll say it's a little bit of both, actually.
Wow, I love that, and that is absolutely interesting. Now, a very important cultural check. Now, if we were sitting together for a late night strategy session and the food arrives, so are we going for the classic grilled platters? Or are we leaning into the clean living plant-based life? You know that I know that some of our tech family, they're actually strictly just in case vegetarians these days. So I just want to know which side you drift into.
The grilled platters.
That's so creative.
The grilled platter. So for me, there's a lot of mental gymnastics that is required for the kind of work that I do, right? So vegetables won't help me there, right? So, but I actually believe that my tummy needs to be filled for my head to actually be effective. So
Exactly.
yeah, I'd go for the grilled platters, right?
And especially for your creativity, you need something to spice it up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the answer. So now let's get into it. Now there's a massive myth floating around executive suits right now. Leader says we don't need AI governance projects. Now, in my view, that's like saying you don't need a seatbelt because you're not planning on crashing. So now, Chijioke, from where you're seated, how much AI is actually happening under the radar in companies today?
So I'll be blunt, right?
Okay.
Kindly speaking, the truth is that tons of it, right? Most organizations that are saying they haven't started AI yet are just not being truthful to themselves, right?
Yeah.
They probably haven't labeled it yet, right? Just like in IT, where we have things we refer to as shadow IT. basically where you're using things that have not been approved by management per se and things like that.
Yeah.
We also have something we now refer to as shadow AI. Basically, that is employees, basically trying to use AI. Although it hasn't come to, it's not official yet in quotes, right? But still, employees tend to drift towards that AI, either, let me use this to quickly summarize this, right? Or let me use this to make my the letter or the email I type to someone a lot neater, a lot tighter, and things like that. So yeah, there is AI, and anyone who wants to say that they haven't adopted it yet, the truth is that they are not being really truthful to themselves. AI is there, organizations employees are using it, right? They just haven't told management the way they are using it or how they are using it, but but it's there.
Thank you so much for that. Now, for me, it's that accidental leak that keeps me up at night. It's the marketing intern using a free tool to touch up a confidential strategy deck. The data doesn't just stay in the room. It feeds the global machine. So now, how do we stop being the department of no and start being the department of how?
Well, kindly speaking, and this is where governance comes into full light, right?
Yeah.
Truth is that, in my experience, especially when it comes to security has sort of drifted from being reactive to being proactive, right?
True.
We although there's been I don't want to say there hasn't been incidents with respect to AI, but there might not that we know directly. But the good thing is that governance is now trying to get ahead of before there is that major incident or there is that leak and things like that. So we've now had organizations now saying, okay, we need to nip this in the bud before it actually blows out of proportion or before it becomes something really serious, right? And that is where organizations are now beginning to watch the management body language to see what direction in which management is traveling, right? In terms of governing AI, right? What do we need to do? I've been part of a team where we've actually implemented things like data loss prevention with respect to artificial intelligence, right? Where, although I would also want to say, when we implement DLP, we're also leaning on things like machine learning to be able to identify those things that, we tend to be AI and the likes. But yeah, it does the job, and we hope that, that people are not able to circumvent it and then go outside of what is required. But yeah, governance is actually doing it's taking it really seriously in being able to say, let's curtail this, let's try and get ahead of this before something terrible happens with respect to AI.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Now, I want to talk about your work at Purple Wasp. I've always found the name fascinating because a wasp is precise, fast, and definitely pay attention when it's in the room. So now, when you walk into a boardroom, how do you convince a CEO that governance isn't a brake on their speed, but actually the very thing that allows them to go faster?
Well, when I walk into a boardroom, I don't talk controls first, right? Okay. So oftentimes, what we like to do is probably talk about velocity. We don't talk about speed, but the kind of momentum that we're using or that we're actually using to get to where we want to be, right? Most organizations, don't get me wrong, they don't hate governance, right? I know that's always, but when the language is clear, when the objectives are clear, when the strategy is clear, then it becomes more of like, good governance actually now begins to act as guardrails, right? And not actually like a brake and things like that. If I want to use your same analogy of the whole speed thing and all that, if you're, let's say for instance, if you're moving at a snail speed, 20 miles per hour, you probably don't need guardrails, right? But when you're moving very fast, at the pace in which AI is moving right now, is when you now begin to talk about things like guardrails. How do we ensure that this does not go out of what we actually intend? Innovation without governance is actually, it feels fast. There are things moving at really really at lightning speed, right? Until something happens. I know recently there is also a standard that has been published with respect to artificial intelligence, right? But it's now we'll sort of begin to ask organizations, okay, if you're using AI, have you looked at the standard? What do you make out of it? Are you implementing what is there? Are you helping to ensure that these things are not circumvented and things like that, right? So we don't necessarily have to wait until regulators step in and be like, oh, this is what you should do, or a data breach happens, or or something happens and all that. So governance, is sort of, I want to encourage people to try and actually lean into it. Done properly can actually save the organization from a whole lot, right? It can guide people in what we sort of do when we talk about governance is take that entire business strategy goals and objectives and try and interpret it in ways that employees, or the business itself understand, okay, this is what management wants, this is where we are, and this is how we're going to get to where we want to be, and things like that. So that's my take on AI when I walk into those boardrooms, and hopefully I hope that we're actually making an impact, in our own little ways and the way that we possibly can.
Wow, thank you so much. I love that. And it reminds me of what we do at the CyberGuard Lounge. We often see companies that want the audit only after something breaks. But the real magic is in the advisory phase, building that culture of security so that when you finally hit that go button on an AI model, you're not crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. You actually know it's secured. Now, let's bust some myths. I'm going to give you 3 common boardroom beliefs about AI, and I want you to tell me if they are facts or dangerous fiction. So now, Chijioke, are you ready, or do you need a minute or two?
Okay, let's go at it.
Okay. Myth 1. If the AI vendor is a big household name, our data is automatically safe. Did you get that?
If an AI vendor is a big name,
if the AI vendor is a big household name, so does it mean that our data is automatically safe because they are a big AI vendor?
I'd say that is a dangerous fiction, right? That's a dangerous fiction because being a big AI vendor does not automatically mean safe. We've seen instances where some of the what's it called? Some of the big names, I don't want to mention anyone on this call, but some of the big names have suffered incidences in the past, in recent past, and things like that, right? If somehow your data are with some of those big names, then it can only mean that once confidentiality is lost, right, then it actually also affects your business. So I would say that's it. And also don't forget that even while the AI vendor, right, has your data, you're eventually under regulations like the General Data Protection Regulation, like the GDPR, the UK DPA, and all that. You are ultimately the controller of that data, right? The vendor is not the controller. So for anything to happen to that data, you're ultimately responsible for that data. So I would say even while you're doing that, you need to be able to conduct your due diligence, right? You need to be able to know certain things about. I know. Oftentimes, we as IT people or security people, it's a big name, I don't need to do my due diligence. I don't need to, conduct a third-party risk assessment or management on that because I know that basically the whole world uses them. But that's a dangerous fiction. I would not say you don't take it on face value. Also do your own due diligence, and also you also need to conduct what we refer to as a gap analysis, right? Not gap, but basically like to assess how, if this data were to be lost, how would it affect our business and things like that. So I guess in 2 words, it's a dangerous fiction. So
wow, thank you. Now we're going to the myth 2. AI governance is just an IT problem. So now the legal and HR team don't need to be involved yet. So is that a fact or a dangerous fiction?
I'd say it's dangerous fiction as well. The reason why I'm saying so is AI touches everything basically, right? So these days you can see someone just go and say, oh, AI draft this policy for me, or AI draft this agreement, or AI draft this recruitment letter and things like that. So no, AI is not just an IT problem, right? IT, or by extension, the security team are there to support, right? We can only do the much that we can in terms of trying to keep data safe and the likes, but AI is not just an IT problem, it's a general problem, and everyone needs to come together and try and see how they can possibly make it safer for everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Now the third one, we can just patch the AI if it starts showing bias or leaking info later on.
Sorry, come again. Communication again.
Okay, now we can just patch the AI if it starts showing bias or leaking info later on. Like if the AI starts showing bias or leaking info later on.
Yeah. Oh no, dangerous fiction. Dangerous fiction. So I was trying to understand it because, artificial intelligence are not what's it called? They are not your traditional software to say, the save button broke, let me fix it. Right.
Yeah.
This AI takes a lot. It takes a lot, especially with respect to. It's not something that you start today and you finish it tomorrow. First of all, there's a lot that goes into AI, like things like the training part of it, the data collection, data cleansing, then the ingestion of those data used to train the models. The architecture and all those things. So there's a whole lot that goes into AI. So once it's corrupted or once something has gone wrong while you're training that data, the best thing for you is just to go back and retrain. You do a lot of validation, certification before you actually now roll out the data again. It's not something you can just fix with the click of a button, right? Because even some of the what's it called? GPTs that I was seeing today that go 4.5, 5. There are things that are found, oftentimes not dangerous things that can maybe, let's say, leak data or something like that, right? You might have maybe we're improving how the machine responds, to prompts and things like that. But data leak is one that is very serious, and I would not encourage anyone to go ahead with any language model if it's leaking data. It goes back to that thing I was saying earlier about due diligence, right? If you do your due diligence and know before you actually adopt any of these either the language models or, in fact, not only artificial intelligence, also respect to machine learning and the likes. Yeah, dangerous fiction as well for me.
Thank you so much. The third one is actually a trap, because fixing it later in AI is like trying to take the sugar out of a cake after it's already baked. If the foundation is biased or the data lineage is messy, you're building on sand. So now, next one, if a business leader is listening to this right now and they're about to sign off a new AI integrated system, what are the 3 uncomfortable questions they should ask their vendor or their own CTO before they pick up the pen?
Well, that's tough. There are tons that they can ask, right? Yeah, I have loads of questions, right? And I'm probably one of those people who had never really, you call me an old dog, right? I've never really leaned into the whole AI stuff and all that. But I think for me, one of the things that I would actually go for are things like, let me say explainability, right? So explainability in the sense that if the AI responds in a certain way, right? Can you explain in clear terms what that response, where the response came from, how the response came, why it came and things like these are questions you need to be able to because we've seen, you know. I don't want to call names again, but a couple of days ago, I was on a social media platform, and the platform was specifically talking about, his you probably already know who I'm talking about, right? Was talking about how his own AI was a little bit more detailed. But reading through the response the AI gave to the question that it was asked, because 4 different AIs were asked that same, 4 different models were asked that same questions, and some of them were being a little dodgy with the question. But because of how that model responded, the owner of the said, "Oh, this ours is not biased. It gave us a good response," and things like that. But that was the angle the owner of that wanted the AI to respond from, because reading the response felt the AI was biased in a certain way. I'm not. The question. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty, but I think for me, first thing would be explainability. If you cannot explain why that response came, why it came, where it came from, and why it gave that particular response, then I think it's a no-no for me, right? Then for me, the second one is about sovereignty, basically, right? Oftentimes, so what basically happens is we use some of these models that or these platforms that when you enter your prompts and it gives a response, oftentimes it not only takes your prompts, but sometimes the data that you fed it, to actually go back to train their models and things like that. But if we reside in a country where we are bothered about data, the types of data we process, and data is remaining within the shores of that country, right? Oftentimes, with the use of AI, we can basically say that is lost, because that data has been transported across borders. It's no longer within that particular shores of that country, depending on the model you use, or depending on the AI that you're using. So I would also ask, that's one that I'll be very particular about. Where is the AI? Where is it domiciled? Is it in Europe? Is it in the US? Is it in Asia? Is it in Africa? That's one thing that I'd also be very, very bothered about. And then the third one would be exit strategy, right? Okay. Exit strategy. So we have this, and then we no longer want it. What do we do to quickly exit that particular agreement or that whole? These are things that we need to, because so you oftentimes you see some of these models where they say, oftentimes to use some of the free models, they tell you, you need to allow us to be able to use your data to train the AI and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe if you want the free ones, some of the paid ones, maybe no, right? But then I think my question will be, what is the exit strategy, right? If I get into this, so I would say, don't sign the dotted lines if the exit strategy is not clear. Right? So if I'm leaving, do I get my data back? Will my data be wiped? Basically, it will begin to lean on things like the GDPR, for instance, where, remember, like I said a couple of minutes ago, about you being the controller of that data. So at the time you want to leave, do you get your data back? What is your data used for? What time frame are they going to have it before they can say, are the data also being anonymized as they are being used and things? So these are some of the questions you need to ask. And if you're not clear about the exit strategy, then please don't sign the dotted line. I think those are the 3 for me.
Wow, thank you so much. Explainability is the big one. At CyberGuard Lounge, we always tell clients, if your AI makes a decision, like denying a loan or flagging an employee, you haven't just lost control, you've lost the trust of your stakeholders. So now, thank you so much, Chijioke. Now on this segment, it's called Rapid Fire. I want my answers short, punchy, no buzzword, no filters. So now, number 1, most overrated AI buzzwords of 2026. Very short.
Most overrated buzzword is we throw around the word a lot, autonomous, right? To say, the AI is autonomous, which means that oftentimes it acts on its own, but we all know that that's not true, right? So that's in one word. That's what I'd say.
For that. So the second one, in one sentence, what is the soul of good governance?
good governance is making decisions today that you'd be comfortable explaining on that oath tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah.
Now, third one, will AI create more work for auditors or automate them away?
So AI will create more work for auditors, although a different kind of work, right? But it's going to basically, it will automate things like sampling, maybe reviewing logs and evidences and things like that, right? But auditors would then have to shift, right, from that to things like, what's the model, how to validate sort of like the models, the design evaluation, biases and sort of those are things. So I would say, it will create more work for auditors basically.
Okay, now one app on your phone you would never trust with AI access.
So I've never trusted AI with my banking application, and I will never do. Thank you very much.
Okay. So now the last one: AI optimist or cautious realist? Which one are you? Cautious realist.
Oh, I'm a cautious realist to the core. I'm a cautious realist. Like I said, I've never really trusted AI. I probably would never trust it, right? But so I'm just, like I said, I guess I'm one of those old dogs. I try to take my time to warm up to things and things like that. So cautious realist.
Okay, thank you so much. So Chijioke, this has been an absolute masterclass. You've reminded us that while the machines are getting smarter, the human elements, the oversight, the ethics, the governance is actually the most valuable asset we have. My takeaway today is simple. Don't wait for a crisis to start caring about your G word, which is governance. Now, governance isn't about stopping the future, it's about making sure you actually have a seat in it. So before we let you go, where can our listeners find you and follow the incredible work you're doing with Purple Wasp? So you can share your LinkedIn handle, your socials for our listeners.
Yep. Yeah, okay. I'm Chijioke Okoye on LinkedIn. Purple Wasp on LinkedIn as well. And on X, I'm just one tech guy.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's so brilliant. And for those of you listening, if you're wondering where your organization stands, whether you need a deep dive audit, specialized training for your team, or just some clearer advisory on how to handle the AI shift, that's exactly why we built the CyberGuard Lounge. We're here to help you turn security from a headache into a superpower. So this has been Security Unpacked. I want you to stay smart, stay curious, and as always, stay secured. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.